The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Lisa and Robin are two fun friends diving deep into conversations where nothing is taboo. They believe in eating dessert before dinner and wearing the bikini. They're allergic to labels, authority, and cheap shoes. Currently, they're launching themselves through life being the good time, bold enough to take risks and inquisitively asking, what's next? They hail from New Hampshire, but they could be anywhere dressed in cute clothes. If they had to share a tombstone, it would read, "Curiosity killed these cats." Your hosts, Lisa and Robin on the mic.
Welcome back to Lisa and Robin on the mic. You are listening on 1590 AM, 95.3 FM. You can watch, stream, and listen on WSMN.live as well as live on YouTube. And we are up on Spotify and everywhere else you find your favorite podcasts. Welcome to another Thursday. I am back from vacation. Robin is flying on vacation. So we have our summer in full swing here. I thought I would tell you that I thought I'd update you because we're always talking about our health and we're always talking about how we look. And the two and two kind of go hand in hand. And one of the things that I had sort of complained about a few weeks ago before I traveled, that I bought a coaching session that included you having to buy their food. And I've never been a fan of that in the past. I'm a really good cook. I don't really need anyone else's food. Half of the time, I don't think anyone cooks as good as me. Or because I am making food for myself exactly the way I like it, I'm sort of spoiled. So to have, if I'm going to have to cut my food in half or do something where I feel like I'm restricting myself and then you add that the food's not that good, it's something that's not going to last. So I spoke to them about the fact that I'm not going to keep buying the food. The food stinks. It's terrible. I don't even think it's that healthy. I'm going to just stick with making my own food. So I'll tell you some of the things that I've been making that I do feel like when I eat them that they're so delicious, but also they have a little bit of that my body is my temple type vibe to them. And they're perfect for the summer. So I made a soba noodle edamame salad. So soba noodles are just like pasta, but they have just a slight bit more fiber in them. So they're a little bit healthier than a traditional pasta. And they don't seem to spike my blood sugar. So I'm not wearing it today, but I am still wearing the Stelo, and they don't pay me to say this, but they should probably start. The Stelo continuous glucose monitor. So one of the things that I wanted to take into my own hands was, if my blood sugar continued on my blood tests, I was going to be diabetic soon. And of course, there's diabetes medicine. They can give you medicine to help you with that. But also losing weight helps with that. But I noticed that I didn't seem to know what to eat anymore. So using the continuous glucose monitor, it comes with an app on your phone, and you can see in real time what's happening as you eat different foods. And so it's been a game changer. And in October, it'll be a year, and I think that's when I'll stop wearing it because I think I've eaten everything I'm ever going to eat in this past year to know, how that's working. So I noticed that when I was eating the prepared food, that my blood sugar was going up more so than when I was eating for myself. So I kind of backed off and went to my own food. So this salad is soba noodles, which don't seem to spike my blood sugar as much as regular pasta does. So you cook it for about 7 minutes. I take frozen shelled edamame, which is a great source of protein, has no fat, and it's vegetarian. Give yourself a break from meat every now and then. Boil that for 4 to 5 minutes. And then I drain both of those, and then I cover them with probably a tablespoon of sesame oil on the edamame with some salt, and then I put about a tablespoon of olive oil on the noodles. Then I mix those together. I add, these are all raw vegetables. I add probably a cup and a half of green cabbage, a a cup of red cabbage, a yellow or orange pepper, whatever I have in the fridge. Then I use green onion. I do orange segments. So I peel an orange, like I cut the top and bottom off an orange, peel the skin off, and then cut it into segments. So I've got and then I add, one more thing. I add carrots. And then I cover it with a little bit of sesames and just like a cold pasta salad. And I add about a teaspoon and a half of mirin. So if you don't know what mirin is, I have it in my house because I make pork katsu, which is katsu's like I think it's Japanese, or maybe it's Korean, I forget. It's like their barbecue sauce. And one of the flavors in that katsu is mirin. And mirin is a sweetened sake. And instead of using soy, which everybody would use soy, but it would make the soba noodles really salty. And because I make a big batch of it and then have it over 2 or 3 days, I don't want it, I think it gets too salty by the 3rd day. So I avoid soy. I add just regular salt when I put salt on it. And then I use this mirin. And the mirin is just a tad bit sweet. And I feel like it's very filling because of all the vegetables. I feel like I'm having a complete meal. I can make it ahead. It travels well in a container. So when you go to the supermarket and you go to the Olive Bar or you go to any kind of that section, they have those round plastic clear tubs with lids. I just grab a couple of those, fill them with the noodle salad, and I can take it with me anywhere. We've had it on the boat. I've been having it. I have it at dinner at the house. You make it once, you can get a few meals off of it. It holds well. It tastes good cold. And it's just super healthy. And it's making me feel, like my body's a temple. It has that Asian flair to it. All the raw vegetables. It's very satisfying to eat. So that's something that I've been eating a lot of lately. So I've been doing this. I talked to the group, the coaches, and I said, I'm not going to do the food. And one of the things that they really were promoting with the food was the fact that it's perfect macros. The perfect amount of fat, the perfect amount of carbohydrates, and the perfect amount of protein. And I will say that for most of us, as we're trying to lose weight, it really doesn't matter if you have 91 grams of protein or 100 grams of protein or 51 grams of fat or 52 grams of fat. We need to really just start eating real food and probably half the quantity of what we're eating. So one of the things that helped me when I talked to this coach, before my food came in, they had me make a couple of changes that have actually really moved the scale needle, which even though the scale is only one measurement of your health, it's the one that we can measure. And that's why I think I like the Stelo continuous glucose monitor. It's data. And I'm just a data person. I like wearing my watch when I go for a run and knowing I went 2.3 miles. I like looking and seeing that my blood sugar is at 121. There's another app that I've been using because, I know I'm always complaining about technology, but there's actually some pretty good technology. These people are also not paying me, although they may decide they want to, because I really love this app. It's called Zoe, Z-O-E. And that is an app that really encourages that you get healthy by having a healthy gut microbiome. And so they really prioritize eating at least 30 different plants. And everyone's like, oh my God, 30 plants. There's no way I'm going to eat 30 different plants. But seeds, nuts, herbs, and plants count as plants. So you can take your yogurt, throw a couple of nuts in it, pistachios, macadamia nuts. You can throw pumpkin seeds on it. Now you've just upped the quantity of your total plant consumption for the week. And I'm kind of going off on two different tangents because when I was talking about the macros, the way the coaches were explaining them, you have to really dial into perfect macros. What I think the problem is with all of this information that we have about health and eating, we always prioritize one thing to the detriment of something else. So if you've been on any kind of television, you've been in the bookstore, if you've been on any kind of social media, God, they're telling us we're not having enough protein. We are having enough protein. And I'm telling you that as someone who is following it on an app now. Because when they would say you need 120 grams of protein, I thought there's no way I can prioritize this much protein in the calorie count they're saying I need to keep. But fish, actually, lobster is unbelievably high in protein. I had lobster and it was like 60 grams of protein. That's an unbelievable amount of protein that I was getting in one meal that I didn't even think that was it. Hold on, we have an incoming call. Hold on. Hello? Okay, I'm going to try to put you on. Are you here?
I am here.
Oh. Johnny, I can hear you in my ears. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you all doing?
I am fantastic. Tell me what you are up to. What are you making?
Solo today, but I'm chasing Robin. I'm in Florida too.
Are you in Florida? What part?
I'm in the Tampa airport. Getting ready to go back to Charlotte.
Oh, nice. I love Tampa.
I love it too.
So
well, you're talking all of the school stuff today. We have quite the in your first hour. You talked about the night sky. Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn are all visible right now. You can see them in the early morning if you look to the east and the south. And then something special happens tomorrow. The moon will be in its furthest point from the Earth, and that's called apogee. It'll be like 251,000 miles away, and it's the furthest the moon is from the Earth at any point. So that happens tomorrow. So the gravitational effect of the moon is at its minimum tomorrow than any other time during the year. So wow. Tomorrow's a big day.
That's incredible. And that you know that, Johnny. You know so much about so many different things. Tell me what you're eating in Tampa. Are you eating a lot of fish?
I'm not right now. I'm having a Starbucks black tea, but you started talking about macros and all that, and you know I've been on a ketogenic diet for 5 years.
And that's been working really well for you.
You're right. And I watch my macros like crazy, like you're discussing. And, you know, it's 75% protein, 75% fat, 20% protein, and 5% carbs. And for the first 3 years of that diet, it was really hard because, you know, the world is basically one big carbohydrate.
It is.
You know, everything's got potato, everything's got sugar, everything's got starch, flour, everything's like that. And the reason is I wish I had a T-shirt that said carbs are cheap, because they are. You can go to the store and buy, 50 pounds of rice for, $20. You can buy pasta soup, and that's the stuff that I just can't have. So I always just say carbs are cheap. But following the macros, my health has made a big turnaround. However, you can't stay on these diets like the ketogenic diet forever. And the reason is because your body starts to get used to it and starts to gain weight even when you are limiting your carbs, because your body says, all right, well, that's all I got to work with, but I'm going to be efficient, because our bodies are fat storing machines. That's what they do. They're always preparing for the worst. And so I started to have some carbohydrate-rich days just to basically satiate my body, saying, hey, here's a little sugar, enjoy that today, and hopefully, that'll keep my body from gaining more weight. It's a constant struggle.
It is, and I do think that for the most part, I think, like you said, carbohydrates are really, really cheap food. And when the government went into making the food pyramid, they didn't say they were going to make us healthy. They said they were going to keep us from starving. So when they gave us that pyramid that said, hey, the basis of your diet should be carbohydrates, it was because there wasn't enough calories, I think, at the time. I know we all have our favorite conspiracies, and the government wanting us to be unhealthy is one of them. But I think originally it started from starvation. Hey, get your bread. And back in the day, we were also working as farmers. We were working very physical jobs. We needed that kind of calorie. We needed cheap, expendable energy because we were working so much harder and more physically. Now we're all on a computer or at a desk or on our phones. We're not nearly as robust, and working out, even just in, trying to get your 10,000 steps in is very difficult with our lifestyles today.
You're so right about that. What was very interesting is back in the 40s and 50s, you didn't see a gym every 2 blocks in America because we were all out. I wasn't alive then, but people were out, like you said, doing physical labor, doing hard labor, and so they were burning the calories. We've become more of a service-based economy where a lot of us sit or do minimal movement. And so what did they do? They said, oh, let's have gyms. So instead of walking for work and walking for life, let's go and pay money so that we can go walk.
Right. On the treadmill, the most boring, the treadmill slow minutes. So when are you coming back into Nashua?
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Excellent. And what are you doing? You said you're going to Charlotte next?
Yeah, I'm going to go Charlotte. See my folks.
See your folks.
But I did want to. We were talking about food. I've been working on a chicken recipe that I'll enlighten the audience about. I've been trying all the different parts of the chicken. We get very comfortable with breast, chicken breast. Because it's the easiest and sometimes the most forgiving. But I've been playing around with legs, and so I've been using taking the legs and I soak them in buttermilk for about 12 to 14 hours. So I let that meat just marinate in buttermilk. I add some black pepper and a little bit of salt, but just let that buttermilk soak into that chicken. And then I pull it out, and I've been just using some Hidden Valley Ranch seasoning, just a light dusting on that chicken. And I'm telling you, it's just so divine and good.
Oh, I love ranch dressing.
I've been baking. I bake it at 450 degrees, and that's a big change for some people because they're like, I bake chicken at 350. But what I found is if you bake it hot, in the oven at 450, you get that nice skin and the juices stay inside. So you get that sear on the outside from that really blistering hot oven, and you don't burn the chicken. It just provides that crust. And so if you want to go to Market Basket or grocery store, you can buy a whole pack of legs for like $3. It's a cost saving piece of chicken, and it's very flavorful. So just want to introduce everybody back to the humble chicken leg.
Yeah, and I will tell you that I think the dieters in us gravitated towards the chicken breast, but it's really hard to keep a chicken breast moist. I mean, it's good luck trying to find chicken breast with skin on it at the supermarket, but the chicken thighs are my favorite. I stuff mushroom stuffing underneath them and bake them, and it makes like a mushroomy gravy as all the fat drips down. That is a phenomenal meal, but I agree with you. I think chicken thighs are to die for. They're moist. They hold the moisture well. They can take a fair amount of cooking, or even, for lack of a better word, overcooking, and it makes them better.
Kind of like the leg. The leg is just sort of like the thigh, but further down. The thigh bone's connected to the knee bone. Remember the old song. So, but the other thing, with people who are watching their carbs, one of our staples, as you probably know, is chicken salad. It is a staple. It is low carb. You can make it low carb. So, but I used to use all white meat chicken, like just wing meat or breast meat, and I have started using chicken thighs to make my chicken salad, and the flavor is absolutely phenomenal. Just the texture and the mouthfeel of the thigh meat, the darker meat used to make the chicken salad. I'm never going back to this meat for chicken salad ever again. I love it.
That's really good to know. I make a chicken salad with curry powder, cranberries, a little bit of grape. I do some toasted walnuts. I like my walnuts toasted. I don't like them raw in that salad, but I hadn't thought to use the chicken thighs. That's great. That's great.
I've been using the chicken thighs, and it's much more. I guess it gives it a much more moist texture, and you can use less mayonnaise that way because that's not so dry, and you're not trying to compensate for the dryness of the breast meat with mayonnaise.
Yeah, I cut my mayonnaise with full fat Greek yogurt. So
I've used that too, and I do like that.
yeah, just because I would use 700 pounds of mayo if I wasn't using something else. Just because it's a choking hazard.
Speaking of diet stuff, if you got 3 more minutes.
I do.
What is your opinion on all the negative press and all the negative words on seed oils? I'm talking about soybean oil, canola oil, everything that's expressed from seeds, then hydrogenated and ultra processed. I've been trying to just use olive oil and avocado oil for everything, but it's hard to find a good mayonnaise or even a store-bought dressing unless you do it all at home, which I'm trying to do, without that soybean oil. But they say it's quite inflammatory. Have you heard the same thing?
So I've heard from nutritionists that it's the hydrogenation of it. So any oil can be like, you know how they say trans fat? The trans is like the turning. So if you heat olive oil, which is one of the healthiest oils there is, if you heat it beyond its heating point and you make it smoke, you actually change it to a trans fat. So,
yeah, that's what I understand. That's why I switched to avocado oil, because it's got a very high smoke point.
Yes. So one of the things, I have always stayed away from corn oil and soybean oil outside of mayonnaise, because the mayonnaise I find it's very hard there. I think Hellmann's has an olive oil mayonnaise, but it's probably twice as much as the regular one. But when I was on my own for the first time, I have my own apartment and I go to the supermarket, I can get a jug of oil for $2 or I can get a jug of oil for $10. I was like, well, I imagine that the $2 one is cheap and therefore it's not as healthy. So I've even used olive oil in my brownies, because you put oil in brownies, and and people make fun of me when they find out, but no one's ever tasted the olive oil in my brownies. But I don't have those others. I used to use grapeseed oil,
right? But
I used a cold pressed one because I thought that might be a little bit healthier. But we do have to be careful about our fats, and I think this goes to your point about the fats, but it also goes to, if our body doesn't recognize it, then how does it process it? So if your body doesn't recognize something as a food, something that it can break down into amino acids and use as the building blocks for our bodies, what does it do? It stores in our fat. That was one thing. Remember Tab? Remember the soda Tab? They had saccharin.
Yeah.
And
yes, saccharin.
Tab was delicious. Saccharin was delicious. Well, they found it gave mice tumors because it wasn't processing and metabolizing out, and it was storing in the fat, which turned into tumors. So I think
but if you read that study, they gave the mice like truckfuls of saccharin.
Yes. And that's how we were drinking it. That's how I was drinking it.
I'd like to have like 1,000 tabs a day.
Yes, yes. But I was having 6. And I think that probably is too many, 365 days a year. And being as young as I was, I didn't drink water.
But it was tasty. I will give you that. It was a good drink.
Nothing tastes like Tab. I tried Pepsi with lemon for a while to try to get that flavor, but nothing tasted as good as Tab. But I think to your point,
Diet Coke.
I think to your point, if we try to keep the food that we're eating something that our body can recognize and either turn into a building block to help our cells or to process naturally out, I think that's the best way to go. And I do think if you want to try, there's a Hellmann's, read the back. There is one with an olive oil instead of soybean oil. To give that one a try. I think it tastes the same or as similar as you need to, but it is hard. It is hard to get those. And I know there's a lot of controversy about it. And I think it comes down to there's good seed oils depending on how they process it, and there's bad ones depending on how they process
Absolutely. Well, I've, I've come to the point now where if it wasn't available in the 1400s, I don't need it.
Yeah. Yep. And
That's sort of my meter now. When I'm at the store, I go, was this around in the 1400s? Are the ingredients, have they been adulterated? And I use that word because that's the field I came out of. But has man had to overly process it to make it edible?
Right.
And if that's the case, then I don't want it in my body.
Yeah, because I don't think your body recognizes it, and you're taxing your system with, what do we do with this? Do we eliminate it? Do we keep it? Do we put it over here? How does your body process it? I know some people joke they have iron guts, that they can do anything, but your gut is basically your second brain. So
Yes,
you want to keep it as
absolutely.
healthy as possible, just like you want to keep your brain as healthy as possible. Alcohol, kind of ruins the microbiome in the stomach, as well as alcohol passes the blood brain barrier. So there's so much to try to keep yourself healthy. Johnny, you look fantastic. You can tell that you've been losing weight and you've been doing a great job, and I'm so glad that you're staying healthy and so you can be around with us
I'm
longer.
trying. Well, I just was so fascinated by your solo show. You're doing great with your Robin paper, your support paper. So it's nice to call in and talk to you, as we haven't talked in quite a while. But you're doing a great job with keeping everybody positive and truly achieving the mission of your show. So
Oh, thank
thanks
you
for
so
taking
much.
my call.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a safe flight. We'll talk to you when you get back.
Bye.
Bye. That was so sweet, Johnny. We love Johnny. He listens all the time. So Johnny makes a really good point. He was watching his macros. He's on keto. Keto is actually great. So I talk about this book ad nauseum, Brain Energy by Dr. Christopher Palmer. He talks about ketogenic diets being great for people who have brain seizures and certain types of brain conditions. I think it's grand mal seizures, another type of seizures, and even schizophrenia. I think he also found that people with schizophrenia have a problem metabolizing vitamin B, if I remember correctly. I know that I have a terrible time. My body struggles to process vitamin D through my stomach. So I can only really get vitamin D either through a shot. That's the only way my body assimilates it, or through my skin. For years, I wore sunblock and tried to keep the sun off me. And now I get as much sun as I possibly can get, because vitamin D is so important to synthesize. Basically, vitamin D is a hormone as much as it is a vitamin. It's a hormone, and it regulates. Vitamin D is so important, and so isn't the magnesiums, because your body uses, and I'm going to get the number wrong, 320 different processes in your body use magnesium. And we used to get a ton of magnesium in the soil, in the food as we were eating. And then as they solo cropped and did various things like that, we get less and less magnesium. So back to my soba noodle salad, that has a ton of really good for you vegetables. Cabbage is great for you. Carrots are great for you. All of the vegetables that I put in are good. And it gives you a little bit of break from the meat. I'm a omnivore. I do eat meat. I do eat fish. I do eat chicken. I try to eat everything. I think it's really important to have a well-balanced diet, to eat all of the different things, because everything provides something that something else doesn't. So many people don't like eating red meat. It doesn't agree with them. I'm a huge proponent of red meat. When I don't have red meat, my body tells me I get iron deficient. But one of the things I think is really hard is, like Johnny, he's traveling. How hard is it to maintain a very specific culinary lifestyle? Because I don't want to use the word diet, but I mean, we can use the word diet. When you're traveling, when you go to an airport, every restaurant is TGI Fridays and Applebee's and Starbucks and what was the name of that bagel place? Einstein's Bagels. Cheap, easily consumable food that's probably not the most nutritious. So it's hard when you're traveling and you're not cooking at your house to maintain any kind of health goal that you have. I had been on this little journey. I had lost, I think, 12 pounds before I went on the trip. And when the coach asked me, "What do you have any saboteurs in your health goals?" I immediately said no. No, of course I don't have any saboteurs in my health goals. Well, the next day I was invited to a party, and everybody, we had, I think, 3 birthday cakes and 1 pie for 11 people. So a little bit of saboteur, a little bit of sabotaging going on because, oh, we'll just have a bite of this, just have a bite of this. And there's such a hospitality portion to food. So if you're like me, where food is my love language, I love myself and I love other people through food. And you tell me what your favorite food is, I'm making that for your birthday. There's something so soul satisfying about loving someone through their stomach. That's my personal opinion. So when you have that kind of philosophical background, that food is synonymous with life. Everything revolves around food. What are we eating? Where are we going? What are we making? What are we eating? It's hard when you have to put such a constraint onto that very positive. Normally it's a very positive experience, and now you're restricting it. And when we restrict it, 2 things either happen. We can't sustain it, which is mostly what happens. It doesn't fit into our lifestyle. Again, going on vacation is very difficult. Or you somehow find a way to build it so that it doesn't alter how you would normally live. So for example, one of the things that I was told that I was doing wrong, so as I had continually gained weight, I restricted myself more and more. And as I did that, I tried the intermittent fasting. I had tried skipping breakfast, reducing calories, exercising more. And what my body was doing was saying, hey, you're abusing me. You're not giving me really what I need to survive, so I'm holding on to every single thing that you give me. It's one of the things they made me do because the coach had said I had so much information that I just wasn't putting, I had the right puzzle pieces. I just wasn't putting the right pieces together. So she said, you're not eating enough. You're not eating often enough. And you're not having enough fat. And again, one of the things that's difficult is how much protein, how much fat, how much carbohydrate. Well, if you're eating subs every day or you're eating, whatever takeout food every day. I love Chick-fil-A. I love pizza. If I ate nothing but Chick-fil-A and pizza, I would look like I'd eaten nothing but Chick-fil-A and pizza. But what was frustrating was having oatmeal and blueberries and still looking like I ate Chick-fil-A and pizza all day. That was like, what's happening here? So again, that's where learn what it is for you. Experiment what it is for you. So the glucose monitor was super useful. And the Zoe. The reason why I brought up Zoe was all I have to do is take a photo of the food I'm eating, and it lists the ingredients. It allows me to swap out if the ingredients are wrong, and then it gives me a summary per meal and then a total for the day. So total fats, total protein, total fiber, total carbohydrates, total calories. One of the things that is crucial of a macro that nobody talks about, so I will talk about it, is fiber. In the American diet, we don't get enough fiber. We just don't. I think they said women need 30 and men need 35 or 40, and the average person gets 8 to 18. So you're getting less, and when you add that up cumulatively after a year, you are significantly behind on fiber. Now, fiber is so important as a macro, and no one talks about it. It's so important because it binds to other food and it moves it out as waste through your body. One of the reasons why that's so important is if you have sugar without fiber, your pancreas and insulin will go through the roof. If you have sugar with fiber, such as fruit, a different metabolic process happens in your system. The other thing is we eat a lot of binder. Think of flour, right? We eat a lot of binder. We need stuff pushing everything through the system. So if you're worried about, if you are like, I can never get enough protein, I promise you, you're probably getting enough protein. Unless you're eating nothing but pasta all the time or bread all the time. But if you're eating any kind of proteins, you should be fairly there. And the reason why I know that is because once I started checking with my Zoe app, I was over 100 grams of protein almost every day without trying. And the other thing I did, because they said I wasn't eating enough, was I eat within a half an hour of waking up, which has completely helped my blood sugar. Because if you don't eat within an hour of waking up, your body will stop pumping out blood sugar because it needs energy from somewhere. If it didn't get any through the system, it is going to create it in your system. So that is putting it's making my pancreas work when it doesn't have to. So I'm talking what would normally be my breakfast is half. So I'm eating 5 to 6 times a day, which is 4 times more than I was eating, because sometimes I would just have lunch and dinner, or I would try to have a snack and dinner, which wasn't doing my body any good. So say whatever you have for breakfast, I'd half it. I'd have half when I first wake up, then 2 to 3 hours later, I'd have that other half. Again, lunch, instead of having a big lunch. And by eating more often, I prevented the panic eating that happens when you're starved. So once I get hungry, I don't know about you, but personally, when I get hungry, 50% or more of my brain is allocated to when are we eating, what are we eating, and how do we eat right now. So by feeding my body more often, my body knew I was going to eat and eat again. So I would get a little bit of hungry, but you know what? My 3 hours is almost up. So I actually had it done on a timer at first because I wasn't used to eating that often. And then the other trick they had me do was drink at least 100 ounces of water. So I was averaging between 40 and 60 ounces of water. So you don't want to add the water. You don't want to go from drinking 4 or 5 glasses to water to drinking 10 glasses of water in one day because you'll flush out your electrolytes. So what you want to do is add 4 to 8 ounces until you get up to 100 ounces of water. And I do, because I have a heart issue, I do take a calcium, magnesium, potassium supplement because those are really, I'm sure I get enough salt, except when it's really hot and sweaty like the last couple of days, I might not have had enough salt. But for the most part, I'm getting enough salt, or I can get enough salt in my diet alone. But it's those other minerals that are part of the electrolyte chain that I feel like I'm always a little bit deficient in. You can tell because I get toe cramps and calf cramps, and that's usually a magnesium deficiency. So back to now going on vacation, what do you do? I continue to eat the smaller meals. You go on vacation and it's buffet breakfast. Normally, I would have a little bit of everything. I told myself, it's not like I'll never have a waffle again, even though there was a waffle station. And it's not like I'll never have this again. So I just had, again, keeping my portions smaller and then taking an apple or an orange from the fruit, bringing it 2 hours later. I would have that. For lunch, I tried fish and a salad was mostly my lunch. And the islands have tons of fish. They also use either a jerk seasoning, a blackening seasoning. So I got my fish blackened, and it was over a salad. At the hotel, there was this grilled pineapple salad. So it was a little bit of lettuce, but mostly cabbage. And I think it's probably because where are they getting lettuce on the island? But don't be afraid to use cabbages in your salad. Just because sometimes you go to the store and the lettuce is unappealing, or especially in the winter. I think salads are so uninspiring in the winter because where are we getting fresh lettuce? So don't be afraid to do almost like a slaw version. where you have your cabbages and your carrots. But they had that, and then they grilled pineapple, chopped it up really small, and added a few other things in there, and then put the fish on top. And they gave you an entire fish. So I ended up splitting that with people. I split it with my sister-in-law one day. I split it with John another day. And if I couldn't eat it at all, there's the part of me that always feels guilty about wasting food, especially because I do eat animals and fish. Even plants, I feel bad when I throw it away. So I would rather share something than, take half of it and throw it away. And I'm not reheating fish in a hotel room, even if my little hotel room does have a kitchen. I'm not reheating fish. So that's what I had for lunch. And then dinner, because I was on an island and I do like fish, I just ate fish the whole week. We had steak once or twice. Definitely once. And again, I ordered, instead of a 12 or a 16 ounce, I ordered an 8 ounce filet. So the other thing, I think, we don't know portion sizes anymore. One of the things they wanted me to do was weigh my food. I could not get it together to buy myself a scale. But if you look at the size of your hand, when you close your hand into a fish, that is usually the portion of your protein that your body is supposed to eat. And the great thing about using that is, if you're a big dude, you got big hands, you got big, banana hands, your portion of meat will be bigger than my portion of meat because we are two different sizes. So that's like a quick rule of thumb. And if you look at between your knuckles and your wrist, how small that is, now if you made all of your food that portion on your plate, you probably would be eating not even half of the amount of normal food that comes on a plate. I am guilty of this. I am Italian. I get very, very panicky if everyone doesn't have enough food. I'm always afraid of running out of food. I don't know if it's a gene. I have no idea what it is. But I tend to be a heavy ladler. And that's why the buffet usually would break me, because it's a spoonful of this, a big spoonful of this. It's this and this and this. The order that you eat your food actually does help in how you absorb calories. If you eat your fiber first, so this was one thing I was doing wrong. I would eat my fiber at the end. I would eat my salads at the end. I would eat the vegetable at the end, thinking the fiber is pushing the food through. Opposite. You want to eat your fiber, your veggies, fruit, whatever, first, because the fiber triggers how much insulin will actually be pushed out. And since I've been doing that, making sure I eat my fiber first, I also think it's a sneaky way of making you full quicker, because you're eating, fiber is fullness. So fat is the satiating piece and fiber is fullness. So when you have, don't have dry broccoli. When you steam broccoli, cover it in olive oil, a little bit of olive oil. There's only 20 calories in broccoli. You can put a tablespoon of oil on it. Give yourself 120 calories of broccoli. But there's something in the combination of the two things together. So that was another thing that I was kind of doing wrong, was I was almost ingredient eating, because it's like, I'm trying to get my protein. I'll have just eggs. It's having everything together. So what I've been doing is putting everything together. If I have yogurt, it's not just yogurt. I'm having a few pieces of like 4 or 5 blueberries, 4 or 5 blackberries, and some kind of nut, pistachio. I try to alter it a little bit so that I am getting my 30 different plants in. And part of that is the biodiversity. So if you eat nothing but broccoli, yes, you're healthy, you're eating broccoli, but there are so many other vegetables that provide you so many different things. So there's some ridiculous amount of basically bacteria in our stomach, and they all feed on something else. One of the benefits of this Zoe app is that it's encouraging you to be diverse in your food. So if you have oregano this week, have basil next week, have cilantro the next week, make sure that you're changing things up so that your body is getting a wide variety of nutrients. It's the same thing with fish, scallops, I think, mussels, clams, and something else have zinc. Zinc is very hard to get into our system. We don't need a lot of zinc, but we need some zinc. So one of the things that I think is a disservice is when you look on the back of labels, it'll give you how much vitamin A, how much vitamin C, a couple of other things. if you look at what the body needs for vitamins and minerals, the list is extensive. I can't even pronounce some of the words, like manganese, selenium, all of that stuff. Brazilian nuts. It's like, you only need like 5 milligrams or whatever it is. Well, eat 5 Brazilian nuts. Chop those up, put them in a salad, put those on your yogurt, put them in cottage cheese. There's something about combining the fat with the protein, with the carbohydrate. And like Johnny's on a keto diet. So he is having way, way less carbohydrates. But I noticed that I'm having carbohydrates because I had rice the other day, but I'm not having the amount I usually have, to be honest. I could eat my body weight in potatoes in a heartbeat. So it's funny how over the years when I've been restrictive dieting, whatever carb you would take away, I would just make up for in the other carbohydrates. So if you said I couldn't have bread or pasta, well, then I had potatoes. I had a lot of potatoes. So I am a carb girl. Carbs make me feel good. So you would think that I'm not saying that I'm on a low carbohydrate diet, because I'm not. When you look at my carbohydrates, they are in balance. But to not prioritize carbohydrates when you're eating, you really have to make an effort. Like Johnny said, they're cheap, they're everywhere, and they're in everything. Having a sandwich, that's part of the problem, is you're having 2 carbohydrates in there. So one of the things I've been doing, instead of having tuna sandwiches, because I actually really like tuna sandwiches, is I'll put it in lettuce cups. So I use Manoa lettuce. I stick it in an ice bath. So it drains off any dirt, cleans it really well, but it also shrinks the lettuce to be like a tight cup. And then I use that also for I make hoisin chicken lettuce wraps, which are fabulous. And that's how I remembered when I was like, oh, I don't want tuna on salad again. I was like, oh, I can do it in a cup. There's other things you can do to try to alleviate. And like Johnny was saying, the chicken salad, it's great low carb. You could always put it in a tortilla or a wrap that has way less carbohydrates than, say, 2 pieces of deliciously fresh bread. I also think, Johnny and I were talking about it, that the more ingredients you don't know how to pronounce, those ingredients are important for shelf stabilization. When you buy fresh bread, tomorrow the bread's done. It is a hard rock. You could use it as a cricket bat, some of those French breads. But you could, add 10 things to that, make it shelf stable, and now it's not nearly as healthy. So if you are going to eat bread, I think eating fresh bread or even homemade bread is the way to go. The more you can put in your body, like Johnny said, something that it knows what it is, it knows what to do with it, it knows how to break it down, and it somehow supports the human body. We would never think of putting sugar in our gas tanks. So we really shouldn't be putting that much sugar in our bodies. Sugar naturally exists everywhere. We don't need to overly add it. I remember whatever year it was that the study came out with the mice, and choosing sugar over cocaine. I don't want to get a lot of cocaine in the show. I should not be on my own. I need my Robin. But they were doing this study. Mice chose sugar over cocaine to show you how addictive sugar is. We were joking that we were killing our friends with sugar because all we were doing is baking. We were bringing cookies everywhere. We were baking cake. Everything we were doing is with sugar. I was pouring at least a half a cup of sugar in my iced tea. I would make a container of iced tea, half a cup. And then when people would say stuff, I'd say, do you know how many teaspoons of sugar are in your Coke? This is still half the amount. But when you see someone pouring half a cup of sugar into something, you're like, what are you doing? And I think that's one of the benefits of starting to make stuff for yourself at home is you see the ingredients that go in. The first time I made homemade ranch dressing, my spouse started pouring it on a salad. I'm like, whoa, that's mayo. You're putting a ton of mayo on what's supposed to be a healthy meal. I do make my own salad dressings. The best way to think of salad dressings is thinking of it like alcohol. When I make an alcoholic drink, I'm doing portions. I'm doing a third, and a third, for example, to make a martini or to make an old fashioned. It's 3 parts to 1 part. That's how I make my drinks. That's also how I make my salad dressings. And you need an acid, an oil, and some flavorings. Some quick dressings. You can use orange juice as your acid. I've made an, I'm trying to think, I add like a tablespoon of mayo just to give it some viscosity. Then I add a little bit of orange juice, olive oil, salt, pepper, and thyme, and I put that over green salad, and then I chop up green apples and toast walnuts. I am not a fan of raw walnuts, so whenever I'm saying walnuts, I'm always toasting the walnuts. For some reason, that raw taste tastes off to me. If I'm putting it in a dish, I really do like my nuts toasted for the most part, except macadamia nuts. I can eat those raw. One of the other things that I was thinking when it comes to dieting and food, so when you're going on vacation and you're doing this stuff, I can't believe I just talked for an hour. That went quick. All right. Until next Thursday, thank you for tuning in with us, or me, just me today. I'm Lisa and Robin on the mic on WSMN, 1590 AM, 95.3 FM. You can always watch, stream, and listen on WSMN.live. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify. Please like us and give us a review. It helps us get out to more people. Until next week, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.